In the previous video, we talked about passing arrays as method arguments or inputs. Now, in this video, we want to talk about returning arrays as method output. To return an array as an output from a method, what we need to do in the method definition is to include the square brackets after the data type to say that this is an array that we are returning. An example is if I say public static integer array sort, and then the input is going to be an unsorted array of numbers, for example. In this case, is going to be unsorted array of integers. Now, if I take out these square brackets, the method is going to expect to return just a single integer. And in the method's code return, we just specify the name of the array that we are going to return, again without these square brackets. So let's see an example of how to return an array. So let me go ahead and delete those, and I will go ahead and delete those comments as well, and I don't need my swap method. So let's suppose that I will ask my user to enter a list of elements. Now I can say that I will ask my user to how many elements the user wants. So I will need to use scanner to ask my user. Now I can define my scanner in my main method, and then if I want to use the same scanner inside another method, I will have to define it again. But what I can do here is I can just define my scanner outside of my main method, and this is going to allow me to use it in every part of the code. So scanner scn, and this is where I will just declare my scanner, and I will import the scanner class. Now inside my main method, the first thing is I will initialize my scanner to a new object. So scn is equal to new scanner system.in, and now I can use my scanner. Now the first thing I want to do here is ask the user how many numbers do they want to use. Now I need to make this static because now I get the error that I'm trying to access a non-static variable from a static context. So I can just say static, and that is going to solve the problem for me. Now I want to say some message to tell my user to provide me with the number of elements they want. So how many elements do you want in the array? And then I'll just need to store this in some integer. So integer number of elements is equal to whatever I get from my user. So scn dot next integer. Okay. Now I just need to define an array here that is going to be the size of the elements that the user told me. So integer array numbers is equal to a new integer array. And now for the size here, remember I will get the size from the user, so it is going to be the same number of elements that the user told me. Now this is going to create an array of whatever size they told me about. Now I want to also allow my user to give me those elements one by one. So what I want to do in here is basically create a method that is going to retrieve those integers from my user. Let me call this method fill. So it is going to be public static, and remember what I'm doing is I want to return an integer array in this case. So I will say, okay, it is going to return an integer array, and this is going to be called fill. Now what is going to be the input of this is the integer array that I want to fill. So it is going to take another integer array, and I'm intending to this integer array and return it at the end of my method. So at the end I will say return the array that I filled. Now if I do it like this, whatever array they give me, I'll return it as it is. So I need to have a loop that is going to fill that array. So I can just go for, if you do control space, and this is a shortcut to allow you to iterate over the array. This is going to use the same array that we defined in our method, so I can just go with this, and as you notice, it is going to go from 0 to the length of my array. Now for every item I want to ask my user what is the number that you want to insert. So basically, what should I have in that place? So I need a print statement to say something like, please enter a number. When I say this, what I need to do is I need to take the number they gave me, which will be done using a scanner object, which is the same scanner object we defined up there. The reason I defined it in the class, because if I define it in here now, everything in here is the scope of this scanner object, and I can still use the same object. If I decided to define it in the main method, then I will have to define another scanner in here. Both ways will do the same thing. Okay. Now what I want to say is, whatever I get from the user, I need to store it in the position that I'm working with. So how can I say it? Is I will say at this point the array of whatever index we're working with is going to be whatever I get from my user. So scn.next integer. And this is going to fill the whole array with whatever integers that I get. So I can come back into my main method and then say, okay, now I defined my numbers array. I can just say numbers is equal to whatever the result of filling that numbers array. And then I can save this and I can run it. So let's just have another loop that is going to print it for us, just to make sure that we fill the array. So again, just control space, which is going to look at the last one we dealt with, and system.out.println, and I will just print the number at that position, numbers at I. So let's test out the code, and now it's asking me how many elements do you want in the array. Let me say I want 4 elements. So the first number is going to be 1, 2, 3, and then 4. And then it printed all of the elements 1, 2, 3, 4 because I just called the loop to print my numbers. And this is an example of how we can return an array as the return type of a method. Now we can return an integer array, double array, string array, whatever data type of the array. It is all going to be the same format, public static, and then the return type followed by the square brackets to say that this is an array that we are going to return, method name, whatever arguments we need. So this doesn't have to be just one argument. You can have whatever list of arguments that you need to process in your code, and then at the end we will just return an array that we just created.